Dr. Gibbons, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm delighted to be here before you today with my colleague Laura Tyson. I was just thinking to myself in her presentation, which was independently prepared from my own, that it's not 100% of the time that economists and scientists seem to see eye to eye, but I believe this morning that's the way it's going to come out. This technology initiative, as you know, was introduced in February by the President at San Jose. It was called Technology for America's Economic Growth, a New Direction to Build Economic Strength. And in that presentation, we focus on three central goals for the administration. First is long-term economic growth that both creates jobs and improves environmental quality. This is derived from a plan that focuses clearly on deficit reduction as a means, first of all, to get our own house in order and also to keep interest rates lower and more funds available for investment. And second, and that deficit reduction obviously has to go at a measured pace. If you go too fast, you have near-term downside economic implications. If you go too slowly, it goes to the long side. But given that first focus on deficit reduction, then comes the inevitable need to invest. If we expect to go to the future and to regain our national strength and competitiveness, we simply can't do that without investment. Investment in people, investment in infrastructure, investment in our production system. So long-term economic growth that creates jobs and improves environment is the first of our three areas of focus. The second is making government itself more efficient and more responsive. The old term is physician, heal thyself. And I can personally attest this morning that when I went to the White House, I thought I had two jobs, that is as science advisor and director of OSTP. I soon was also assigned the job of running the National Space Council and the National Critical Materials Council as reflecting the administration's concern about streamlining beginning at the White House itself and becoming more user-friendly and productive. The third focus concerns world leadership in science, mathematics, and engineering. In research, we know we still hold the lead in most areas with respect to our competitors around the world, but that lead continues to shrink. And in education, we have much work to do, and I know that the committee understands that full well, not only in developing new scientists, new engineers, new specialists, but also in upgrading the skills of all of our people so that they can be more productive players in our economic future. Well, we're committed to moving in a new direction that recognizes the critical role of science and technology as it must play in stimulating and sustaining the kind of long-term economic growth that creates high-quality jobs and protects the environment. The two previous administrations were, I think, committed more to the idea that government should support basic research and mission-oriented research, then dominated by the military, but should not concern itself with civilian technologies that could be used to help create better competitiveness, new jobs, or a better environment. This administration sees very important and long neglected opportunities for new kinds of partnerships to be developed between the people through government and the private sector and the marketplace. We can no longer rely on the serendipitous application of defense technology spin-out to the private civilian sector. This, however true it may have been in times past, is not true today, as Dr. Tyson also pointed out. We must aim, we see, more directly at our goals and focus our efforts on new opportunities before us, recognizing that government can play a key role in enabling private firms to develop and profit from innovations. In other words, not only to assist in the research area, new technology development, but also to lay the seed ground for a more attractive situation for private investment and innovation to occur. The technology initiatives that we are working on encompass many efforts to directly aid companies in developing new technologies that apply to new products and services, but also apply to improving the competitiveness and the quality of our existing industries. A number of examples we could talk about this morning. I would mention, to start, an example whereby if one can recognize the public interest in a particular area and its alignment with private interest in that area, then one has the basis for a partnership kind of development. And one we're working on quite diligently now is in the area of so-called clean car, in which we believe those interests are collateral and can be added together in a way that is a win-win situation. But this, of course, represents a critical change of course for the United States in economic policy. Compared to Japan and our other competitors, our government's support for civilian technology development has been minimal. The administration intends to dramatically increase its attention in these areas for development of civilian technologies over the next 5 years. The programs designed to strengthen industry-government cooperation and to provide more federal support for commercial R&D include a number of areas. I would mention 4 very briefly to you. First, instructions to the federal laboratories to devote an increasing percentage of their budget to the kinds of R&D partnerships that can be logically derived with industry. We have been mission-focused, and we want to maintain a mission focus to these laboratories, serving the agencies to which they belong. And yet at the same time, for the laboratories to become increasingly aware of the civil sector relevance of that work, and for the civilian sector to be able to more readily enter into partnerships with these laboratories, so that the mission focus is then broadened with a kind of a dual-use capability. A second, a dramatic expansion of the ATP, or Advanced Technology Program, at the National Institutes for Standard and Technology. As Dr. Tyson pointed out, this is to be a peer-reviewed, joint ventures, mutually funded, so that one has a market test of these opportunities. This is a relatively small program in 1993, about $68 million. The administration proposes to expand this by a very substantial amount over the next 4 years. Third, a new multi-agency program led by the EPA to fund the development and diffusion of new environmental technologies, so-called green technologies. There are many important opportunities here to apply sophisticated technologies to the provision of goods and services with less environmental impacts, and we believe there are very important international markets for these technologies, goods and services in the years ahead. And finally, expansion of the Small Business Innovation Research Program. This is where, in small business, is where the good new jobs come from. I think if you're an arithmetician, you calculate that slightly greater than 100% of the good new jobs come from small and medium-sized business. And you will find a focus on that sector of our economy strongly in the administration's plans. Excuse me. The technology initiative includes a number of programs also to accelerate the commercialization and use of new technologies. Let me give you 2 examples. First are regional technology alliances, and these are designed to help make it more attractive for firms and research institutions in a particular area of the country to exchange information, to share and develop technology, and to develop new products and markets. The great strength of our economy, it seems to me, lies in the regional confluence of situations where ideas, finance, markets, educational institutions have a chance to come together. And we feel that these regional technology alliances are things that should be given every encouragement by public policy, certainly not discouragement. And the second area is manufacturing extension centers, which work much in the same way that our historic work in agricultural extension has worked. It reflects some of the very successful work carried out presently by state governments, many of them through their land-grant universities, to assist small businesses in particular to access and to be able to obtain the advantages of access to advanced technology, especially in manufacturing in their products. We hope to see the present few good examples around our country expand to perhaps as many as 100 such centers, a true partnership between the states and the federal government. We know that Japan leads in this area by nearly an order of magnitude compared to what we do here in this country, and it's worked very well for them in that regard. I also want to mention a few things about our initiatives for defense conversion. And as you know, with the end of the Cold War, I'm not sure we've won it yet, but it certainly has ended at this point. The biggest challenge for us as a nation is no longer the threat of global military conflict, but the economic challenge now that mounts and pushes us to restore our competitiveness, and in turn, as Dr. Tyson points out, get after this very woeful situation of the economic status of our families, our low and middle income families falling rather than rising with our recovery. The technology initiatives in this area reflect a twofold, that is a short-term and a long-term approach to defense conversion. Workers and communities that have lost their economic livelihood due to federal actions deserve first-rate help in the form of retraining, reemployment, and community economic redevelopment programs. The administration's defense conversion package contains over $600 million of such assistance to communities and impacted areas. Research development and development programs that support dual-use technologies have an important place in President Clinton's vision as well. He's announced his intention to shift from the present ratio in federal R&D spending to more than 50% civilian and dual use by 1998. And that's a rather rapid change from the present situation as described by Dr. Tyson. The Advanced Research Projects Agency has been given the responsibility for most of the technology programs in the defense conversion package that Congress passed last year, which the Clinton administration is now aggressively implementing. This package includes nearly $1 billion, over $900 million in FY93 for investments in dual-use technology. The Technology Reinvestment Project, jointly operated by ARPA and 4 other agencies, now I believe 5 other agencies, accounts for most of this work, nearly $500 million in FY93. All of these programs, again, include, I think importantly, matching funds and merit-based decisions, as it were, market tests of the likelihood of success of such ventures. The most unusual feature of this technology reinvestment program is that all 6 of these agencies now are acting as a single unit in terms of the access of would-be interested parties from the private sector. They are accepting proposals for all of the component programs at the same time. We'll evaluate the proposals together, and then they will parcel out the management assignment of each of these resulting agreements to the agency that has the best capability to oversee it. Those agencies, incidentally, include ARPA at the Department of Defense, the Department of Commerce, Energy, National Science Foundation, NASA, and now also EPA. This effort embodies a second goal of the President's technology plan, that is, increasing government's own efficiency and responsiveness and user-friendliness. Now, while federal technology programs are important, they cannot succeed without change in other government policies. Many of our current fiscal regulatory policies stymie rather than encourage private investment in new technology and new products. The administration hopes to change the situation with the help of Congress by such actions as making the research and experimentation tax credit permanent rather than temporary, that will enable corporate decision makers to make, therefore, longer-term plans rather than short-term plans, as they have to with only temporary extensions of that tax credit. Others include reforming of procurement policies. As you know, government, that is federal and state, accounts for, I believe, nearly 20% of the purchases made in our economy. And if procurement policies can be reformed and made more flexible to reflect broader needs and opportunities for making market pull for important new technologies and environmentally friendly products and services. This can have an enormous market pull demand in our economy. And finally, encouraging patient capital. One of our many problems has been that we've simply not had capital that is both available and patient in our economy, and the results of that paucity are really very, very difficult. Let me turn for a moment to education and training. I think business leaders would agree with others in our economy, perhaps even more vociferously, the business leaders, that their most important resource are the people that make up their organizations. Productivity and profits depend on having well-educated, well-trained, flexible employees. And for that reason, the administration, again, is committed to trying to help all Americans have access to world-class educational and worker training opportunities and programs. This is a shared effort between private sector and public, but it's an effort all too frequently put on the backs of the private sector to train their people and even get them, the high school graduates that come to them, to have better than a 7th grade equivalent education in mathematics. So we intend to do several things, and I'll quickly go through 3 of them. First, to expand access to the Internet computer network that will connect more universities and community colleges and high schools to each other and to a broad range of information sources. Secondly, to create an interagency task force that will establish software and communication standards in education and training, that will coordinate the development of critical software elements, that will support innovative software packages to be developed, to be, again, a demand pull to our national information infrastructure, and to collect information resources in more standardized formats and make them available to schools and teaching centers throughout the nation using the communication networks. We want to transfer some of the education and training technology developed in the military to the civilian sector so that it can be used in our schools, our factories, and offices. Let me give you an example. Last year, the Navy Training Systems Center and the Army Simulation Training and Instrumentation Command together invested $1 billion in training systems. We want to see to it that some of these experiences and capabilities can be transferred and utilized in our civilian sector as well. And our colleagues in the Department of Defense, as well as in the Department of Education, are very excited about these opportunities of making better use of resources developed in our defense community and now hopefully made more applicable and actively used in our civilian sector. The President has repeatedly emphasized the need to improve the country's infrastructure. Today, that not only means roads and bridges and the likes and highways, but also high-speed telecommunication networks and computer systems that together form our national information infrastructure. We hope that this extraordinary, rapidly moving development will make possible the many, many different advantages of these changes, not just to the experts, but to people across the land. The infrastructure clearly is going to be built and run by the private sector, but the government has a couple of very key roles to play. One is working with industry to develop and demonstrate the technology needed for this information infrastructure to really hum and sing. Secondly, to formulate forward-looking telecommunications and information policies that will promote competition and investment while ensuring that the information infrastructure will benefit all Americans. Well, before concluding, Mr. Chairman, I'd like just very briefly to mention the President's commitment to world-class science, mathematics, and engineering. Our basic science program provides an ongoing sense of adventure and exploration while improving the knowledge base. It also lays the foundation for new technologies. None of the innovations in technology proposed for our initiative will be funded at the expense of basic science. Our proposed budget ensures that support for basic science remains strong and that stable funding is provided for projects that require continuity. We will not allow short-term fluctuations in funding levels to destroy critical research teams and activities that have taken years to assemble. But stable funding requires clear priorities. In recent years, rather than canceling less important projects when research budgets have been tight, the agencies have tended to sort of spread the pain and just squeeze a little bit here and there, resulting in disruptive cuts and associated schedule delays in hundreds of very important programs. We believe that improved management of basic science can ensure sustained support for the high priority programs, but this clearly will mean that some triage will have to be used in our research decisions. If we want to make room for the new, we must give way with some of the old. In conclusion then, as you can see, the administration has, we believe, a comprehensive and proactive technology policy that will hopefully provide many benefits to American business, especially over the longer term. And in doing so, it will provide huge benefits to the American people in terms of new, higher-paying jobs, a cleaner environment, and a higher quality of life for not only ourselves but our children. We certainly look forward to working with this committee and helping achieve these goals, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.